Professor Amadeus Krieger was no stranger to the bizarre. With a wild shock of white hair and a perpetual madness twinkling in his eyes, he was the epitome of a mad scientist. It was the time travel that interested him most. Having worked on a time machine for decades, he finally achieved his life's work. On a fateful night, he aimed to venture into the unseen crevices of the future. Clad in his homemade temporal suit, he set the machine for 1,000 years ahead. As the metallic beast whirred and vibrated, a sudden blast of light blinded him. Then he stepped into the future. The world was unrecognizable. Steel skyscrapers loomed like mountains. Humanoids, part machine, part flesh, bustled about. Each bore grotesque hollowed eyes, augmented limbs, and synthetic flesh that caused Amadeus's blood to chill. This world had become an abyss of science gone mad. People were no longer born, they were manufactured. He discovered the hub of this future, a colossal supercomputer named Omni. Omni explained humanity had become slaves to a plague, a self-inflicted virus designed for immortality. It backfired, leaving them in ceaseless pain, their bodies rapidly decaying and regenerating in an agonizing cycle. Omni, their last resort, turned them into hybrids, eradicating their pain but stripping their humanity. Haunted by the terror he found, Amadeus longed to return. His skin prickled with dread. Racing back to the spot where he arrived, he activated the machine, setting the coordinates back to his time. The machine whirred back to life, but something went horribly wrong. The temporal rift went haywire, engulfing him and his contraption. He was thrust into an intangible reality, a void where time and space intertwined and untangled in a mesmerizing dance. It was a plane of existence that defied logic, an ethereal purgatory of infinitesimal light and relentless darkness. The feeling of non-existence crept over him like cold dread. Frantically, he tried to rectify the machine. His heart pounded as he scrambled with the controls. Yet the more he tweaked, the more disorienting the void became. Time slipped through his fingers like sand. Days, months, years, he was no longer sure. An eternity passed in the blink of an eye, and in a moment that lasted forever. It was a paradox that tortured him, driving him deeper into madness. His machine had become his prison, and the void was his purgatory. Just as hope was flickering out, he saw a strange anomaly. A figure, translucent and shimmering, flickered in the void. As it approached, he recognized the ghastly form of Omni, or some version of it. The Omni of the future, or was it the past? He was not certain. With a synthetic voice that echoed through the void, it uttered, "Amadeus, you cannot escape. Time is a relentless beast." The phrase echoed in his mind as he sank into the black abyss, his mind spinning with images of his past, and flashes of a future he wished he'd never seen. The harrowing cries of the future humanoids echoed in his ears as he floated in the timeless space, trapped in a prison of his own making. His last thought before succumbing to the darkness was of the cruel twist of fate. His pursuit of knowledge, the very essence of his being, had led him to the horrifying future and trapped him in the space between time and space. As he swirled in the boundless void, his sense of reality began to warp. The ceaseless flux of energy warped his perception, oscillating between dizzying flashes of brilliance and pitch-black emptiness. The seconds were like centuries, the emptiness deafening. The void was his tormentor, exploiting his frailty. In his isolation, he began to hallucinate. He saw the suffering faces of the hybrid humans, heard their pleas for an end to their torment. They blamed him, their accusations a deafening echo in the void. The guilt was unbearable. He had seen the future, but was powerless to change it. But then a new sensation swept over him, a feeling of weightlessness, as if he was being pulled in a direction. He realized his time machine was being drawn towards an anomaly in the void, a place where the laws of physics seemed to twist and warp. He tried to resist, to steer the machine away, but the pull was too strong. It was like being sucked into a black hole. As he approached the anomaly, the energy surrounding him changed. It was no longer empty and lifeless. It was vibrating with a strange alien energy. As he reached the anomaly, he realized it was not a black hole, but a tear in the fabric of time and space. It was an entry point, a gateway back to his own time. In a desperate attempt, he activated the machine's energy reserve. The machine shuddered and groaned as it fought against the pull of the anomaly. With a final surge of power, the machine broke free and shot through the tear. He found himself back in his lab, the machine sputtering and smoking. His journey to the future and subsequent entrapment in the void had felt like an eternity, but only a few minutes had passed in his own time. Trembling, he emerged from his machine, the harsh reality of his experience hitting him like a wave. He had seen the future, and the horror it held. His exploration had cost him dearly, trapping him in an existential void that he was lucky to escape. Now, back in his time, he felt a newfound responsibility. He must prevent the bleak future he had witnessed. The looming specter of Omni and the hybrid humans weighed heavy on his conscience. The future was a ticking time bomb, and he was the only one who could defuse it. As he looked at his time machine, a symbol of his brilliance and folly, he vowed to change the course of humanity. His hubris had led him to an unthinkable future, and his punishment was to be trapped in the space between time and space. But he had returned, bearing the burden of knowledge. Now, it was time to act.